In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on January 24th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Washington Wizards versus Charlotte Hornets. The Washington Wizards head to the Spectrum Center on Saturday to take on the Charlotte Hornets, and it sets up as one of those spots where you can almost feel the contrast between the two locker rooms. The Wizards are coming off losses to the Clippers and Nuggets, with the Trail Blazers waiting for them after this one, and the pattern is pretty familiar by now. They have dropped 37 of their last 49 games, which is rough by any standard, and it fits the feel of a team that is very comfortable living in tank mode right now. They have managed just 10 wins in 43 games overall and sit at 4-18 straight up on the road, which makes every away tip-off feel like an uphill climb before the ball even goes up. They have lost 5 in a row away from home and 8 straight overall, so confidence is not exactly overflowing in that group. Injuries are not helping either. They are missing Bilal Coulibaly, Cam Whitmore, Trae Young, and A.J. Johnson, with Chris Middleton listed as questionable, so the rotation keeps getting stretched in all the wrong ways. Trae Young has still not made his debut for Washington, and honestly, it is starting to feel like something that might not happen anytime soon. When you see a team getting blown out over and over, it is usually not bad luck. It is a sign of where their priorities are. The Hornets, on the other hand, are in a very different space, even if they are not perfect. They beat the Magic, lost to the Cavs, and have the 76ers up next. And across their last 12 games, they have basically treaded water, splitting them right down the middle. Consistency has slipped in and out over the past week or so, but they are coming off a very clean performance in Orlando where they handled the Magic 124-97, which is the kind of win that gives a young team a real jolt of confidence. Brandon Miller led the Hornets in that one with 20 points, and while he tweaked his ankle and ended up on the injury report as day-to-day, he has now been upgraded to probable here, which matters a lot to how this offense flows. Con Knueppel has stepped in as a rookie who looks like a nightly 20-point threat, the sort of guy who makes defenses work even on nights when his shot is not falling perfectly. LaMelo Ball has been especially comfortable in this matchup, averaging 30.5 points in 2 meetings with the Wizards, and when a scorer like him finds a rhythm against a particular opponent, that often carries some weight the next time out. From a betting angle on the side, the Hornets have actually been one of the steadier tickets to back lately. They have covered in 12 of their last 17 games, which quietly makes them one of the more trustworthy teams against the number. Washington, on the other hand, has 7 players on the injury report here and is not giving off much of a "we absolutely need this win tonight" vibe on a nightly basis. That gap in intent can matter as much as the talent gap when you are talking about a regular season game in the middle of the schedule. The spread might look a little hefty at first glance, and that can make you hesitate for a second. Here is the thing though, this Hornets group can absolutely blow a team out of the gym when they start fast, especially against a beat-up roster that has already shown it will fold when things go sideways early. They are still chasing a spot in the play-in tournament, so there is a real reason for them to keep their foot on the gas if they build a lead. Put it all together, and it sets up as another realistic chance for Charlotte to control the game from wire to wire. As our first pick for this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Wizards are averaging 112.6 points on 46.1% shooting from the field and giving up 123.6 points on 47.6% shooting on the defensive end. They are knocking down 36.5% of their threes and hitting 76.8% at the free throw line, while allowing opponents to shoot 36.3% from deep. They are pulling down 44 rebounds per game, which is serviceable, but it does not exactly scream physical dominance. Charlotte's profile is a bit different, but still close enough that you can see how the total gets priced where it does. The Hornets are scoring 115.8 points per game on 45.9% shooting and allowing 115.9 points on 47.8% shooting. From the outside, they are hitting 36.6% from three and an impressive 81.2% at the line, while giving up 36.9% shooting from beyond the arc. They are averaging 45.5 rebounds per game, which gives them just a small edge on the glass. With those stats alone, you might expect a pure track meet, especially when you remember that Washington gave up 139 and 126 points in the two earlier blowout losses to Charlotte this season. It is tempting to look at those box scores and assume another fireworks show. However, that is where the injuries and current context come back into play, not for who wins, but for how clean the offense might look on both sides. A Wizards team that is short-handed and stuck in a long losing streak often leans into slower, sloppier stretches with empty possessions and second units that struggle to create good looks. Charlotte, for its part, can still score in bunches, but if they build a lead again, the game can tilt into a more controlled tempo late, with more bench minutes and fewer aggressive possessions on both sides. So even though the raw season averages lean toward higher scoring, the actual game script here has a decent chance to settle a bit below what the projected number suggests, especially if things get lopsided and both teams coast through parts of the second half. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. New York Knicks versus Philadelphia 76ers. The New York Knicks head into Xfinity Mobile Arena on Saturday night to square up with the Philadelphia 76ers, and it has the feel of two teams heading in slightly different directions right now. The Knicks are coming off a small roller coaster stretch with a loss to the Mavericks, a bounce-back win over the Nets, and a date with the Kings on deck. They have dropped 9 of their last 12 games, which tells you they have not really found their rhythm for a while now. That big blowout of Brooklyn was badly needed, almost like a pressure valve being released, but it does not fully erase what came before. Philadelphia's recent form looks a bit steadier. The 76ers lost to the Suns, responded with a win over the Rockets, and they will see the Hornets next. They have won 8 of their last 13 games, which is not perfect, but it is solid enough to suggest they are settling back into a groove. An overtime win like the one against Houston can also juice the confidence a little, especially for a team that keeps talking about making a serious run. On the personnel front, the Knicks might be short-handed, which is not ideal in a matchup like this. Karl Anthony Towns is listed as questionable, and that looms large when you are staring across at Joel Embiid for 40 minutes. The 76ers, by contrast, are actually expecting a full group, with Embiid and Paul George both listed as probable, which is about as encouraging as it gets for them this season. When one team is plugging holes and the other is close to whole, that imbalance tends to show up somewhere in the box score. New York's broader issues have been talked about a lot already, and for good reason. They snapped a 4-game skid with that dominant performance against the Nets, but on the road they have still won only 8 of 20 games this season, which is not a small sample anymore. They are also just 3-7 straight up and against the spread in their last 10 games, so bettors backing them recently have mostly been left shaking their heads. The matchup on the interior is especially unforgiving if Towns is limited or out. Embiid has scored 30 or more points in each of his last 3 games, and he is the kind of force that can tilt an entire game script by himself. If the Knicks cannot at least approximate his offensive output from the center spot, then they are constantly playing catch-up, which is a tough way to live on the road. Efficiency has also slipped for New York. Over the last 10 games, they sit 23rd in true shooting percentage, so the offense has been working harder than it should for every point. During that same stretch, Philadelphia is knocking on the door of the top 10 in defensive rating, sitting at 11th, which suggests they are tightening the screws at the right time. That is not a great combination for the visitors, who already know they have to grind for good looks. Perimeter defense has been another sore spot for the Knicks lately. Before that Nets game, they allowed guards like Max Christie and Devin Booker to drop at least 25 points on them, which is not exactly a comforting trend. Now they have to deal with Tyrese Maxey, who has been lighting them up, averaging 33 points per game against them this season while Philadelphia has won both meetings. When you pair that with Embiid's current scoring run and the healthier overall roster, it is pretty clear which side feels more stable. As our first pick for this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Knicks are averaging 120.5 points per game on 47.3% shooting from the field, which is a strong scoring clip even with their recent wobble and efficiency. They are hitting 38.1% from beyond the arc and 80.2% at the free throw line, which gives them plenty of ways to generate points, whether the jumpers are falling or they are grinding at the stripe. Defensively, they are allowing 115 points per game on 46.6% shooting and giving up 37.1% from deep, so opponents are not exactly being smothered. They also grab 46.2 rebounds per game, which can help create extra possessions and second-chance buckets, both of which nudge totals upward. The 76ers are not exactly shy on offense either. They are putting up 116.6 points per game on 45.4% shooting. From long range, they shoot 35.5%, and they are very reliable at the line at 81.5%, which quietly matters a lot in higher-scoring games, especially late in tight contests with plenty of free throws. On the defensive side, they allow 115.4 points per game on 46.5% shooting, hold opponents to 34.5% from three, and bring down 44.2 rebounds per game. When you line all of that up, you get two offenses that can score in bunches and two defenses that are solid but not suffocating, which usually points toward a healthy total. New York's recent ranking in true shooting suggests some inconsistency, but their overall averages still show they get to their number often enough, especially when their shooters find rhythm early. On the other side, Embiid's recent stretch of 30-plus point outings, combined with Maxi's history of big games against the Knicks, naturally pushes the ceiling of what Philadelphia can put on the board. There is also the subtle factor of how this type of game can unfold. If it stays competitive, you are likely to see heavy minutes for all the key scorers, a steady stream of free throws, and possibly some late-game fouling that pads the total. Even if the offenses go through brief dry spells, the overall shot volume, three-point attempts, and trips to the line for both teams make it more likely that the final combined score edges toward the higher side of the projection rather than the lower. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Golden State Warriors versus Minnesota Timberwolves. The Golden State Warriors head into the Target Center to face the Minnesota Timberwolves on Saturday. And it is one of those matchups where the injury report quietly drives almost everything. Golden State just lost to the Raptors and Mavs, with this stop against Minnesota coming before they continue that road stretch. Even with those recent setbacks, they have still won 12 of their last 18 games, so the season has not fallen apart. Minnesota is walking in from the opposite angle, which adds some tension to this spot. They dropped games to the Bulls and Jazz, both very winnable on paper, and they come in on a 4-game losing streak that has people shifting in their seats a bit. They clearly need a result that feels convincing, not just a scratch-and-claw effort. The Warriors are still without Jimmy Butler III, Seth Curry, and Jonathan Kuminga, which leaves a big dent in both their scoring and their defensive versatility. Since Butler's season-ending injury, the defensive slippage has been pretty obvious, especially over the last two losses where they simply could not get enough stops when it mattered. The Timberwolves, for their part, are only missing Terrence Shannon Jr., so they are the healthier group, and that matters over 4 quarters when rotations tighten and matchups get hunted. Golden State sitting at 8-14 straight up on the road tells its own story. They can compete, but winning consistently away from home has not been their thing, and now they have to do it short-handed against a big, physical front court. Minnesota has also beaten the Warriors 5 times in a row straight up and against the spread, which hints at a matchup that already leans their way even before you factor in the current injuries. There is a little bit of a tug of war here, because backing a favorite that has lost 4 straight never feels completely comfortable. Those losses to the Bulls and Jazz especially feel like results that should not happen if you are fully locked in. The Timberwolves can play with their food at times, and this recent stretch has hit that Patrick Ewing ugly description pretty well. Still, the specific way these teams are built right now tilts things. Without Butler, the Warriors' defense looks broken, and they are also missing Kuminga, who is one of their better offensive pieces and a key body when you need size and energy. They already had issues scoring for stretches, and taking away 2 of their better scorers puts even more weight on the remaining starters, which is not ideal on the road. Minnesota's massive front court should bully a smaller, injury-thinned Warriors rotation over time. On top of that, Golden State has no real physical answer for Anthony Edwards when he gets downhill, and that kind of mismatch tends to show up more and more as the game wears on. If the Timberwolves do not handle business in a spot like this, you really do start to creep toward that panic button conversation for them. With both teams in their current state, a healthy Minnesota side at home against an undermanned Warriors squad lines up as the one more likely to stretch out a margin rather than play from behind. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Saturday's matchup is also the second stop on a 4-game road trip for Golden State, which can quietly wear on a team's legs as the miles stack up. They are coming off a 123-115 loss as 6.5-point favorites on Thursday, a game that again showed they can still score in bursts but are struggling to put a lid on the other side. That pattern has helped the overcash in 5 straight Warriors games, a pretty loud signal that their recent contests are tilting toward higher scores. Minnesota's recent slide has come with a defensive dip too, which fuels that same direction on the total. They have lost 4 in a row and have allowed 120 or more points in each of their last 3 outings, which is a sharp contrast to what was once an identity built on defense. Across those past 3 games, the Timberwolves have given up 124.3 points per night, so opponents are getting comfortable looks and turning them into real numbers. When you put that next to a Warriors team whose defense is broken, without Jimmy Butler, you get a pairing that leans more toward a shootout than a slugfest. Golden State's issues on that end of the floor create open lanes and clean jumpers, and while their own offense misses Kuminga and Butler, they still have enough shot-making to keep pace when games open up. At the same time, Minnesota's big front court is set up to dominate the paint, and that often means high percentage looks inside, putbacks, and free throws, all of which add up quickly on the scoreboard. Golden State having no physical answer for Anthony Edwards only adds another scoring engine to the mix. If he gets rolling, you get drives, foul trouble, and kick-out threes, and those sequences tend to come in bunches rather than as isolated possessions. Even if the Warriors' offense has some quiet patches, the combination of their defensive problems and Minnesota's recent defensive slide tilts the environment toward a higher total overall. The history between these two lately nudges that same way. The Timberwolves have won and covered 5 straight in this series, and the over has gone 4-1 across those 5 meetings, which fits the idea that these matchups tend to be more open and free-flowing once they settle in. With Golden State's overstreak still alive and Minnesota's defense leaking points, expecting another game that pushes above the projected number makes plenty of sense. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Cleveland Cavaliers versus Orlando Magic. On first glance, this feels like a basic, young, long Magic at home against a tired road team on a back-to-back situation. Honestly, it is not that simple. Cleveland comes in at 26-20, quietly stacking a 3-game road winning streak and grinding through a stretch where their defense is starting to look like something they trust again. They have that look of a group that has been through some ugly games and come out knowing who they are, which always matters more on the road than people like to admit. Orlando sits at 23-20 with a scoring margin that is basically flat. They score around what they give up, which might be the most coin-flip team profile you can get. Some nights they look like a problem, some nights they look like they are still trying to remember what the plan was, and if you have ever bet them, you probably felt that whiplash yourself. The market has shaded toward the home side, with the Magic priced as a small favorite in their own building. Bookmakers are basically saying, we respect them, but we are not going all in on them either, which tells you they see this as more of a lean than a clear edge. Here is the thing that really separates these two. Cleveland under Kenny Atkinson has turned into a very modern offense, high volume from deep, top-shelf scoring, and still dangerous even when key guards are missing. They stretch the floor around Donovan Mitchell, let the big pairing of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen screen and roll, and then rely on a bunch of role players who make smart reads without needing their number called every trip. It has that plug a guy and the machine still runs feeling, the kind of structure bettors usually trust late in games. Orlando with Jamal Mosley is still trying to crack the offensive riddle, even after bringing in Desmond Bane. Local coverage is already calling the offense messy, not because the talent is bad, but because they do not really have that one steady primary creator or consistent spacing that keeps everything clean. So instead of a smooth half-court attack, they lean on whistle hunting and crashing the glass, piling up free throws and offensive rebounds rather than pretty sets. It works in flashes, but it also leads to stretches where possessions feel long and forced, and you can almost sense the crowd tensing up with every stalled drive. Then you stack the injury report on top. Cleveland is without Darius Garland and Max Strus, both dealing with foot issues, but their main core of Mitchell, Mobley, and Jarrett Allen is good to go. Orlando is missing Franz Wagner with that ankle problem and Colin Castleton with a thumb issue, while Jalen Suggs is tagged as probable with that sore knee. So one team is missing helpful pieces but still has its spine. The other is without one of its most complete wings, which cuts into their already shaky spacing and playmaking. So what you actually have is a Cavs group that knows exactly what it wants to be, defending at a solid level and firing away from three, going up against a Magic team that is long and physical but clunky on offense and short one of its better all-around connectors. In a matchup where the narrative screams young home favorite gets it done, the actual basketball story leans toward the road team hanging around every quarter, staying within a possession, and giving themselves a real chance to flip this thing late. As our first pick for this matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. This total number is high enough that you have to think about it, but not so high that you can ignore the way the league is playing right now. Scoring across the league sits in the high 100s teens per team, and both of these offenses live in that general neighborhood, which is why models and odds makers gravitate toward a total in the high 220s. On paper, it says plenty of points, but paper is polite, and pace and style are not. Cleveland, especially in lineups with Jarrett Allen anchoring the paint, plays at a measured tempo just over the 101 possessions mark. They are not walking it up like it is the 90s, but they are also not trying to play like a track meet every night. They will run when the opportunity is clean, then they are perfectly happy to slow it down and run their stuff. Orlando, even at home, leans more toward a grind. Their offensive rating in their own building is respectable, but you can see in the way they play that they are not trying to turn every game into a sprint. Without Franz Wagner, they have actually been less efficient and more reliant on bully ball-type possessions, posting up, driving into bodies, and working deep into the clock. It is physical, it wears you down, and it quietly eats seconds. Their offensive profile, lots of free throws, lots of offensive rebounds, and not a ton of threes, is sneaky good for lower-scoring scripts. You get a choppy rhythm, longer stoppages, and more trips where a long scramble leads to a rushed look that does not fall. Anyone who has watched a whistle-heavy game knows that feeling where you glance up and say, "Wait, it feels like a lot has happened. Why is the score still stuck there?" On the other side, Cleveland's defense is on the upswing. Just a couple of nights ago, they dragged Charlotte into a 94-87 rock fight, which is the sort of game that tells you they are willing to sit down and guard when shots are not dropping. Their efficiency numbers sit in that low teens range on defense, right next to their offense, which paints a picture of a balanced team that can win a game in the 90s or the 100s 20s. Now layer in the schedule. The Cavs are on the second night of a back-to-back after a high-effort win over Sacramento, so legs are not going to be completely fresh. Orlando is at home facing a team that can light them up from deep if they get careless, which usually nudges coaches toward tighter rotations and more conservative defensive choices. Fewer "let us experiment with pace" stretches, more "let us make sure we do not give up a 12-0 run in 2 minutes." So while the season-long stats quietly chant points, 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 the specific ingredients here, the injuries, the pace tendencies, the physical style, and the recent defensive form, all point towards something slower and more deliberate. It feels much more like a possession-by-possession playoff dress rehearsal than a wild regular season scoring fest, which makes that lofty number in the high 220s look a lot heavier than it does at first glance. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.